So the full summary of One Piece chapter 1140 has been released, and the chapter starts where the last one ended. Luffy is confused and doesn't understand why he has to fight Gaban. Zoro recalls what Colin said about how powerful his father is. Luffy stretches his hand to take the key, but Gaban easily dodges him. Starting to get annoyed, Luffy jumps closer to Gaban and tries to take the key again. This time, Gaban coats the key with Haki and smashes Luffy into the ground. Black lightning appears when the key makes contact with Luffy. Luffy emerges from the rubble, looking very annoyed. He stretches his hands toward Gaban multiple times, similar to when he uses Gomu Gomu no Gatling, but Gaban dodges easily once again. Gaban then says, "What a nice straw hat you got there. Suits you better than that helmet, don't you think?" Luffy replies, "Obviously. It's a treasure that Shanks let me keep for him. Now give me that key." Gaban responds, "Keep? He didn't just give it to you? What a stingy man." Luffy shouts, "Idiot, it's not like that. Stop blurting out stuff like that when you don't know anything about Shanks." Gaban laughs and says, "Haha, right back at you, brat." Suddenly Gaban shoves part of the key into Luffy's mouth, causing Luffy's head to take the shape of the key. Then Gaban takes out both of his axes and prepares to attack Luffy. Zoro exclaims, "What axes?" Gaban says, "Yaso Takeru, army of fierce warriors." Zoro shouts, "Luffy, get out of the way." Luffy senses how powerful Gaban's Haki is, and his face changes to a mix of worry and a funny expression. Gaban unleashes a huge attack, striking with multiple axe blows that destroy one of the castle towers. Luffy barely dodges the attack while Zoro blocks part of it with his 3 swords. Gaban thinks to himself he has a good crewmate. Meanwhile, Nami and Road are in shock. Luffy and Zoro get serious. Luffy activates Gear 5th and black lightning crackles around Zoro's 3 swords. All of Luffy's clothes, along with his axe, turn white. Even his Viking helmet fuses with his hair, making it look like he has horns. Luffy says, "Let's do this, Zoro." Zoro replies, "Yeah!" Gaban thinking to himself, so that's truly the white form. Luffy and Zoro charge at Gaban, but suddenly he gives up and entrusts them with the key. However, because they were mid-attack, Luffy and Zoro end up crashing into the rocks as they try to stop themselves. Both of them are frustrated because they didn't get to finish the fight. Road is about to reveal Gaban's true identity, but Gaban stops him while picking up his robe and Casa hat. Gaban says, "Don't rush it, Rad. By the time you leave this island, Velb will still be safe. Come and see me again." Zoro scoffs, "Like we'd ever do that." Luffy adds, "He's right, you dummy. Thanks for the key though, but we're not seeing you again." Gaban walks away smiling. As he does, we see a brief flashback of a moment when Shanks came to meet him in Elbaf. Gaban says, "Hey Shanks, do you really expect me to trust that kid so easily?" Shanks replies, "You're right. You may do whatever you like." And with that, the intense and highly anticipated sequence between Luffy, Zoro, and Scopper Gaban comes to a close. Honestly, this unfolded pretty much as expected, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way. In the beginning, Gaban easily outmaneuvers Luffy in his base form, which makes sense, but this doesn't diminish Luffy's status. After all, he's always relied on transformations to reach his peak power. He isn't operating at Yonko level by default. He needs to activate Gear 5th to truly unleash that level of strength. So, Gaban dodging, countering, and momentarily outclassing Luffy here isn't a knock on Luffy. It's meant to showcase Gaban's own abilities. Since Gaban is likely a key figure in the endgame, this moment helps establish just how formidable he is. However, as soon as Luffy activates Gear 5th, especially with Zoro backing him up, the fight shifts dramatically. At that point, Gaban backs down, but not out of fear. Instead, it appears he recognizes the white form, suggesting he already had prior knowledge of it. He likely knew about Nika, which implies that something in the One Piece or on Laugh Tale gave him this insight. With that realization, he willingly entrusts the key to Luffy, seemingly acknowledging, so he has the white form, meaning he might be the one destined to free the world. Or at least, that's my interpretation. Cut to the Walrus School, where the kids excitedly tell Ange that they saw a strange bird flying by. When Ange looks up, however, it's already gone. Now, the scene shifts to a forest in Sunworld, near the Walrus School. Shamrock and Gunko land on a huge branch. Shamrock is surprised to see that Elbaf even has a school. Gunko then raises her hand and creates a magic circle on the ground. A black lightning bolt strikes the magic circle, and in an epic double-page spread, 2 new God Knights appear. So, yeah, we talked about this yesterday. It seems like this whole magic circle business can actually be learned. At least, that's what I'm guessing. I don't think this is Gunko's personal ability, since we've seen this before war with the Gorosei. I believe all of this originates from Imu. Either Imu is supplying this power or, at the very least, teaching them how to use it. The first God Knight introduced is Saint Summers from the Shepherd family, which is Jupiter's family. He's a middle-aged man with glasses, long hair, and a beard. His goatee is shaped like a cross. He's sitting in a luxurious armchair next to a trunk filled with clothes, speaking to someone by Dinden Mushi. It appears he has been summoned before he even had the chance to get dressed, as he's only wearing a tank top and underwear. Annoyed, he says, "Don't give me that! I need to change and make some preparations. Give me an hour, okay? And what about that stuff, you know, the food supplies? Surely we're not going to let gods starve to death. Hello? What's with the transmission?" So yeah, this is the first new God Knight introduced in this chapter. As stated, he is part of Gorosei Jupiter's family. However, I don't think he's Jupiter's son. It's more likely that he's Jupiter's great-great-great-great-grandson, given that Jupiter is implied to be over 800 years old. Unless, of course, Saint Summers also possesses whatever kind of immortality the Gorosei have, which is still unclear. The second God Knight introduced is Saint Gillingham, who is from the Lamoshif or Ramosif family. Although it is not explicitly confirmed in this chapter, Gillingham clearly has the power of the Kirin Zoan fruit. His name in Japanese is Kirin Gamu, which is another strong hint. It also seems that the Kirin fruit is awakened, as there are white clouds floating around Gillingham's neck. Gillingham appears in a hybrid form. He has a very long neck with a flowing mane. His head resembles that of a horse, but with 2 horns and 2 whiskers. He wears a military uniform similar to Shamrock's and wields a very unusual trident. Additionally, he has a bubble-shaped glass case around his head, like the celestial dragons, with a special respirator. Gillingham says, "Oh no, I'm going to be late. I was half asleep. Where did they say I needed to go?" So here's the second God Knight, Saint Gillingham from the Lamoshif or Ramoshif family. As far as I know, we haven't been introduced to this family before. Unlike Saint Summers, Gillingham doesn't seem to come from the Gorosei lineage, but I guess we're being introduced to another mythical Zoan fruit here, the Kirin Zoan fruit. As we discussed yesterday, the Kirin is another yokai that was originally speculated to be one of the Gorosei's devil fruits. However, it turns out to be Bakatsu ability instead. But now we see that Saint Gillingham possesses the Kirin fruit. As described earlier, his hybrid form features a head similar to a horse's but with 2 horns, 2 long whiskers, a very long neck, and a flowing mane. This more or less matches the traditional depictions of the Kirin yokai that you can easily find on Google. Just to clarify, Kirin is said to be one of the rarest, most majestic, and most powerful creatures known in East Asia. It is a regal animal, holy and highly revered, considered a god in its own right. In appearance, it resembles a deer but has dragon-like scales covering its body. It is a chimerical beast, possessing an ox-like tail and a flowing mane. Going further into this, the Kirin is said to be an extremely gentle creature. It never eats the flesh of other beings and takes great care to avoid stepping on any living thing, even insects. When it walks, it does so without trampling a single blade of grass. I don't know if this aspect of the legend will play into how the Kirin devil fruit works, or if Oda will try to incorporate this part of the mythology into the story. But still, it's pretty interesting if this ability is actually part of the Kirin fruit's powers. Like, if it somehow doesn't directly hurt people but is still effective in battle in some way. I don't know how that would work, but it's an intriguing concept. Meanwhile, Summers notices that Shamrock and Gunko are standing in front of him. Gunko quickly turns around, embarrassed, since Summers is only wearing his underwear. Summers casually says, "Ah, what's wrong, Gunko? What brings you to my home, huh? Shamrock, huh? Wait, isn't this Elbaf? Shamrock then asks why both of them were summoned when only one of them is needed. Gillingham responds, it's because Shamrock has been summoned back to the Holy Land by orders from above. So yeah, it turns out Shamrock is going back to Mary Joel, which makes sense. He doesn't really need to be here at the moment. It's cool that he was introduced, but since he's likely part of the final chase for the One Piece along with all the other major players, it makes sense for him to leave now. We already have 3 Holy Knights present in Elbaf, which is more than enough. Summers then looks around and says, "So this is the country of the giants. How massive. What are you doing in a non-world government country? Are you visiting Harold's grave?" Then in the amazing final page of the chapter, we see the 4 4 God Knights standing atop a massive tree branch, observing the children at the Walrus School from the top of the giant branch. Summers has finally put on his military uniform, which is similar to that of his companions but adorned with several medals and a rose on the chest. He also carries a sword at his waist with a thorny handle. Summers says, okay, so we're abducting kids and bringing them over to the Holy Land? Well, not that these kids are small enough to fit in a bag. Gillingham responds, people without the mark can't pass through the abyss, so we'll have to transport them by ship. So yeah, it turns out that this whole summoning circle ability is called Abyss, which in kanji means pentagram. To use it, a person needs a mark, which, as we've speculated, is likely given by Emu. This means you can't just force anyone to pass through the portal. They either need to be marked or there must be some kind of ceremony involved. At this point, Gunko, visibly angry, says, "This guy." The chapter ends with Shamrock speaking with a sinister expression. He says, "With your powers, why don't you make this a game?" End of chapter, no break next week. So yeah, it looks like the game they're referring to might be similar to the native hunting game we saw in the God Valley flashback, something that Shamrock's father, Garling, was a strong advocate of. And based on Semer's words, the game seems to involve abducting children from Elbath and bringing them to Meriwa. It's likely that this is a way for the world government to force Elbath into submission ahead of the final war. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys, and if you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.